Good evening all. ISA WebCon Kerala 2020 PG paper presentation in a non-competitive category. Here we have totally 10 papers. We have to judge these 10 papers. We have with us Dr. Subbu Varghese, Dr. Manoj, Dr. Ravi, Dr. Edward. Right now we have with us Dr. Edward. Welcome, sir. Judges and presenters, please note you have allotted total 7 minutes. In that one, 6 minutes is for presentation and 1 minute for the Q&A. At the 5th minute, you will get a voice alert which says 1 minute left.
ನಂದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅದಕ್ಕಂದೆ.
ರಾಮಗಿರಿ ಸರ್.
Yes, I am here, Dr. Ravi.
Yes sir, yes. ನಿಮ್ದು ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಟರ್ನ್ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್.
It's right now. It's okay.
Yes, yes. Judges, please note, now our first two presenters are yet to join. So we'll move to the third presenter, that is Dr. Lekha. Dr. Lekha. Dr. Lekha.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, can you share your screen?
Just a minute.
Can you turn off your fan?
No, ma'am, the fan is not working. The fan is not on.
Some disturbances are there. Okay, go to the presentation mode.
Yes, ma'am.
Lekha, your time starts now.
Good evening all. I am Dr. Lekha Salvi, PG resident, Department of Anesthesia, Jalawad Medical College. I'll be presenting a paper on comparative study of two different doses of dexmedetomidine as an adjuvant to intrathecal hyperbaric bupivacaine in lower limb orthopedic surgeries. To start with, lower limb injuries are often with multiple fragmented bones and crush injuries of muscle fibers. Repair of such cases may take time, which is usually unpredictable, and to prolong the duration of subarachnoid block, various intrathecal adjuvants have gained popularity. Have gained popularity, which aim to not only prolong the duration and onset of action, but for better success rate and fastest recovery and minimal side effects. Dexmedetomidine is highly selective alpha-2 adrenergic agonist. It has been used for pre-medication and as an adjunct to general anesthesia, as well as sole anesthetic agent and also as a sedative agent in intensive care unit. Dexmedetomidine has been used intrathecally as an adjuvant and no neurological side effects has been reported in humans. It also provides stable hemodynamic conditions, good quality of intraoperative and prolonged post-operative analgesia with minimal side effects. Intrathecal alpha-2 receptor agonists are found to have anti-nociceptive action for both somatic and visceral pain. It is a randomized, prospective randomized double-blind study. We have included the patients with ASA grade 1 and 2, patients with either sex, patients aged between 80 to 50 years and body weight between 40 to 70 kgs. We have excluded the patients contraindicated to spinal anesthesia, patients having allergy to study drug, patients with hypertension, coagulation defects, spine abnormalities, heart block, arrhythmias, etc. Excluded the patients with height less than 150 centimeters, patients on calcium channel blockers, adrenergic receptor blockers, ACE inhibitors. A prospective randomized double-blind study was conducted with 60 consenting patients of ASA grade 1 and 2 scheduled for lower limb orthopedic surgeries. Using the lottery method, the patients were randomly allotted in 3 groups, 20 patients in each group, group A, B, and C. The surgeon, patient, and the observing anesthesiologist were blinded to the patient group. The dose of hyperbaric 0.5% bupivacaine 12.5 mg was identical in all study groups. Patient allocated to group A received hyperbaric 0.5% bupivacaine 12.5 mg plus 0.5 ml normal saline. Patients allocated to group B received hyperbaric bupivacaine 12.5 mg plus 5 microgram dexmedetomidine. Patients allocated to group C received hyperbaric 0.5% bupivacaine 12.5 mg plus 10 microgram dexmedetomidine. Standard monitoring with non-invasive BP, heart rate and ECG was started. The patients were preloaded with RS solution 15 ml per kg. Patients were placed in sitting position and the lumbar puncture was performed at L3-L4 interspace through a midline approach using a 25 Gauss Pincus needle under strict asepsis. The sensory and motor blockade was tested every 2 minutes after the injection of the drug till the attainment of highest level of block. Hemodynamic monitoring was done every 2 minutes for the first 10 minutes and subsequently every 15 minutes till the end of the surgery in the post-anesthesia care unit until the patient was discharged to his ward. The sensory blockade was tested prick along with mid-clavicular line and the motor blockade was assessed as per the Bromard scale. The result, we've compared the socio-demographic variables like age, male to female ratio, ASA grade 1 and 2, weight and height, and all the variables were comparable in all the 3 groups. We compared time of onset of sensory block, time of onset of motor block, duration of sensory block and duration of motor block. The time of onset of sensory block was more in group C, that is 10 microgram, and 10 microgram group. In B it was less and group A it was least. Time of onset of motor block was least in group C as compared to group B and A. Duration of sensory block was maximum in group C, then B, and the least in group A. And duration of motor block was maximum in group C, then group B and A. Post-operative VAS and total analgesia requirement in 24 hours were minimal in group C as compared to B group and group A. All the patients achieved Bromard scale 3 motor block and there was dose-dependent prolongation of motor block in B and C groups. Similarly, regression of motor block to Bromard 0 was significantly prolonged in group C, then B and A group. Complete recovery of sensory and motor function was observed in all the patients. There was no serious complication in the 60 study patients like nausea, vomiting, shivering, itching, pruritus, sedation, respiratory depression, and hypotension and bradycardia. Different agents have been used as adjunct for prolonging the duration of spinal anesthesia like clonidine, fentanyl, etc. Nimi L. et al. Studied effects of intrathecal clonidine on duration of bupivacaine, spinal anesthesia, hemodynamics, and postoperative analgesia in patients undergoing knee arthroscopy and found that intrathecal clonidine significantly prolongs the anesthetic
1 minute left.
analgesic effects of bupivacaine. Calso A reported that as compared to clonidine, the affinity of dexmedetomidine to alpha-2 receptor is 10 times greater. Result of her study shows that addition of dexmedetomidine to bupivacaine although delays onset but significantly prolonged the duration of sensory and motor block. Mahmoud M. Al-Mustafa et al. Added dexmedetomidine to spinal bupivacaine. He also compared 5 microgram and 10 microgram dexmedetomidine and normal saline. His studies were similar as with our studies, and they observed that the time to reach T10 dermatome, Bromard 3 scale, the regression of the sensory block to S1 dermatome, and Bromard scale 0 were affected by the addition of dexmedetomidine to spinal bupivacaine in a dose-dependent manner. To conclude, supplementation of spinal bupivacaine with dexmedetomidine significantly prolonged both sensory and motor block compared with intrathecal bupivacaine alone. Patients in the group that received dexmedetomidine has reduced post-operative pain score and a longer analgesic duration than those who received spinal bupivacaine alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, this is Dr. Ravi. Well done. Good
Thank you,
presentation. Good presentation. Now, when you're using 10 microgram the Dexmed, did you not find any complications there?
Sir, there were no complications seen in any of the 30 patients or all the 60 patients that we saw, like hypotension or bradycardia or any sedation or anything. So we did not see any of these.
Usually of your dose of 10 microgram, usually have some sort of bradycardia and hypotension. 5 microgram would be fine to use as an adjuvant rather than the 10 microgram. It will produce some sort of brady and hypotension.
So,
What are the other uses of this Dexmed when you use in ICU?
sir, Dexmed is used as a sedative, mostly as a sedative in ICU patients. It has been used for awake sedation in other fields also to reduce anxiety and to relax the patient if awake procedures, sir.
Both bromide and VAS scale.
Yes, sir.
Use both bromide and VAS scale.
Sir, we to know the motor blockage, we use the Broma scale, and later to find out that if the patient is requiring any analgesia or not, we use the VAS score, sir.
So how often you are monitoring?
Yes, sir.
Intra and post-operatively, how often you are monitoring?
Sir, for 24 hours, sir. For 24 hours, the patient will monitor.
Thank you. Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Rekha,
Good evening, sir.
it is a good evening. It is a randomized control study. So
Yes,
you
sir.
have to tell about the randomization, how you have done the randomization,
Sir,
how you have done the randomization
sir,
between
the
the groups.
the
It's important.
anesthesiologist who was doing the cases and the patients both were unknown to the study group that that I took.
Is this that a randomization?
So the
Drugs should be prepared by some anesthetist.
yes, sir,
And
some other anesthetist
Most of the observations should be done by
another one. Yes,
So
sir. Yes, sir.
That's
Yeah,
how
yes,
we
sir.
have done. Then blinding, this is the blinding. So what is your primary outcome?
So primary outcome is that there is a dose dependent increase in the sensory and motor blockade when we use dexmedetomidine with bupivacaine and spinal anesthesia, sir, intrathecally.
Duration of analgesia.
Yes, sir.
So what cutoff value you have taken for giving supplementary analgesia? VAS score.
Sir, what?
And above which VAS score you have supplemented your analgesia in the post-operative?
Sir, analgesia, sir, we included analgesia was given to the patients who could not bear
So
pain.
VAS is a numerical scale.
Yes, sir, it's 0 to 10.
Above
Yes,
number,
sir.
which
Yes,
above
sir.
number you will supplement
Sir,
analgesia?
more than 6.
6.
Yes,
Patient
sir.
will be crying with pain.
No,
It
sir.
should be 4. It should be
4.
4.
With the interest of time, can we move to the next presenter, judges?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Lekha. Thank you, judges. Next, we have with us Dr. Belinda. Judges, please note Dr. Belinda. Dr. Belinda, unmute yourself and share the screen.
Okay, can you hear me? Good evening, teachers.
Yes, yes. And your time starts now.
My paper presentation is on comparison of 2 different doses of dexmedetomidine as an adjuvant to ropivacaine in caudal epidural analgesia in pediatric infraumbilical surgeries, a randomized controlled trial. It was registered with Clinical Trial Registry India in August 2019. The aim of the study was to evaluate the efficacy and safety of 2 different doses of caudally administered dexmedetomidine as an adjuvant to ropivacaine. My primary objective was to compare the duration of postoperative analgesia. My secondary object was to compare the sedation score, hemodynamics, and incidence of side effects between the 2 groups. Methods, inclusion criteria included children aged from 2 to 10 years, AC grade 1 and 2, children weighing between 10 to 30 kg, surgery lasting 30 minutes to 2 hours. Exclusion criteria was parents' refusal, neuromuscular and spine disorders, cardiovascular disorders, patients on anticoagulants, infection over the injection site. Randomization was done by computer-generated random numbers and closed envelope method. The first anesthesiologist prepared the solution and the second anesthesiologist administered the solution and monitored the patients. Nil per oral was ensured as per our hospital guidelines. Child was pre-medicated with syrup triclofos. General anesthesia was standardized between the two groups. Caudal block was performed using the child in left lateral position. Volume of drug was defined by modified Armitage formula. Group A received ropivacaine 0.2% plus dexmedetomidine 0.5 microgram per kg. Group B received injection ropivacaine 0.2% with dexmedetomidine 1 microgram per kg. Rescue analgesia was given in the form of oral paracetamol 15 mg per kg if Wong-Baker score was more than or equal to 4. Duration of post-operative analgesia was defined as the time between the administration of the caudal block and the first requirement of rescue analgesia post-operatively. All children were observed for any side effects like nausea, vomiting, bradycardia, and hypotension. Sedation score was assessed by Ramsay sedation score, and pain was assessed by Wong-Baker score. According to a study of Savita Gupta et al., mean M1 is equal to 654, M2 is equal to 780, standard deviation S1 is 78, S2 is 71. Substituting this formula values in this formula, we got a value of 14.28. For better statistical analysis, we had taken 30 in each group. Data were entered in software Excel and analyzed by using statistical package for social sciences. Descriptive statistics such as mean, standard deviation, median, and quartile range for quantitative variables were used to compare. P-value less than 0.05 was considered significant. Coming to the results, the duration of postoperative analgesia was more in Group B when compared to Group A, and number of doses of paracetamol was less in Group B when compared to Group A. Coming to perioperative heart rate, there was a significant reduction in Group B in heart rate when compared to Group A, up from 45 to 105 minutes. There was no statistically significant significance in perioperative mean arterial pressure between the two groups. Postoperative heart rate, it was statistically significant. There was a significant reduction in Group B when compared to Group A up to 18 hours. There was no statistically significance in mean arterial pressure between the two groups. Sedation score, it was statistically significant up to 4 hours. In Group B had a higher sedation score when compared to Group A. Pain score, it was statistically significant in Group B when compared to Group A from 10 to 16 hours. Coming to the discussion, in this study, in a meta-analysis, we have concluded that dexmedetomidine seems to be a promising adjuvant to bupivacaine to increase the duration of caudal analgesia and increase in side effects in a pediatric, without an increase in side effects in pediatric patients. The study found out that 1 microgram per kg or 2 microgram per kg dexmedetomidine was associated extending the time to first supplemental analgesics. 2 articles reported that 2 microgram per kg dose caudal dexmedetomidine had a higher incidence of side effects compared to 1 microgram per kg. In this study conducted by Vinod Hosla, concluded that caudal dexmedetomidine with 0.25% bupivacaine in pediatric infraumbilical surgery achieved significant postoperative relief compared to caudal dexmedetomidine 0.5 microgram per kg with 0.25% ropivacaine. However,
1 minute left.
However, 0.5 microgram per kg dexmedetomidine had a lesser side effects in comparison to 1 microgram per kg dexmedetomidine. Postoperative vomiting was seen among 6 patients in Group A and 1 patient in Group B. Postoperative, none of the patients had bradycardia, pruritus, or any other side effects in both the groups. Limitations, however, we did not encounter any serious complication in our study. We had a sample size of 60, a larger sample size is to confirm the safety profile of the drug. The measurement of ropivacaine and dexmedetomidine in the blood was not measured. The study was conducted only in ASA 1 and 2 patients. ASA 3 and 4 were not studied. Conclusion, the addition of dexmedetomidine 1 microgram per kg as an adjuvant to ropivacaine and caudal epidural prolongs the duration of analgesia and reduces consumption of paracetamol without serious side effects when compared to dexmedetomidine 0.5 microgram per kg. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good presentation. How do you recognize the adequacy of the block? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Somebody can hear you?
Yes, sir, we can hear
Yes,
you.
sir.
Yeah, doctor. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
doctor.
By the pain post-operative, sir. Depending on the post-operative pain relief, post-operatively, we decide the adequacy of the block, sir.
Do you go? Any other methods are there to find out the adequacy of the block in the caudal analgesia? Do you go with the sphincter relaxation?
Sir, there are
I
studies.
advise you to go
Past
for
studies
sphincter
in
relaxation when you do a caudal block.
Yes, sir.
That is the best way to know the workmanship of the caudal block.
Okay,
The
sir.
other movements are there, then the tachycardia is there. Other than that, we have an adequacy of the relaxation of the sphincters.
Yes, sir.
That's also fine.
Okay, sir.
And what are the pre-medication you give here?
Sir, we gave syrup triclofos, sir, 50 mg per kg.
Right?
Okay, Belinda, it's a perfect methodology.
Yes,
Very
sir.
good.
Thank you.
So my only question is it approved by the FDA for your caudal and epidural and for spinal anesthesia, dexmedetomidine?
It is not FDA approved, sir, but then various study has, so many studies have
Yes,
been.
there are so many studies, so you can do it. Why they are not approved by the FDA? It is not approved by the FDA. Any idea?
Because of the side effects, sir, like
If you don't
hypotension.
know, I will leave it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Belinda, and thank you, judges. Judges, please note next we have with us Dr. Avinash, serial number. Dr. Avinash Munira.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes. You can share your screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Go to the presentation mode. And your time starts now.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, sir. Good evening, madam. This is Dr. Avinash M. From Annapurna Medical College, Bangalore. And I have done this study that is ultrasound guided suprascapular nerve block versus blind shoulder infiltration using lidocaine and methylprednisolone in the management of chronic shoulder pain under the guidance of Dr. Tippeswamy. So prevalence of shoulder pain is around 1 to 67%, and incidence of this chronic shoulder pain is approximately 15 to 30%. Common etiologies of chronic shoulder pains are rotator cuff injuries and rotator cuff syndrome, glenohumeral joint osteoarthritis, adhesive capsulitis, post-traumatic pain, and post-surgery pains. The treatment modalities are simple anti-inflammatory drugs to intravenous procedures, and other interventional procedures such as intra-articular steroid injection and suprascapular nerve block techniques. So here suprascapular nerve block being a simple, inexpensive, and it is associated with minimal complications. It is widely accepted in the management of shoulder pain. So my aim of study is to compare the pain relief, safety, function, and return of function of the shoulder joint using suprascapular nerve block under ultrasound guidance versus shoulder infiltration with steroid and local anesthetic in the chronic shoulder pain. And this is a prospective randomized study, and it was conducted for a period of over 6 months in our hospital. So my materials and methodology, after ethical clearance, eligible participants were randomly divided into 2 groups and assigned to receive medications either by suprascapular nerve block under ultrasound guidance or blind shoulder infiltration in the posterior capsule. Group A was suprascapular nerve block group given under ultrasound guidance, and group B is intra-articular steroid group through posterior approach of the shoulder. Standard anesthesia monitors were connected, and blood pressure, heart rate, and 3-lead ECG with saturation was constantly monitored. Both groups received 2 ml of 40 mg methylprednisolone plus 2 ml of 2% lignocaine intra-articularly as well as in the suprascapular nerve region. The effect of lignocaine and corticosteroid in suprascapular nerve block and shoulder joint were compared. And coming to the anatomy of the suprascapular nerve, it originates from the superior trunk of the brachial plexus, that is C5, C6, and this nerve gives of both motor and sensory fibers to the shoulder joint. The sensory branch will gain sensory information from almost 70% of the shoulder joint. Sonographically, the suprascapular nerve often appears hyperechoic at the suprascapular notch, and suprascapular nerve is located deep to the supraspinatus muscle and deeper to the suprascapular artery and superior to the transverse scapular ligament. So this is the ultrasonological image while performing the procedure. High frequency linear probe was used, and the few structures which could be recognized is supraspinatus muscle, the trapezius, on the top end it is trapezius muscle, below that is the supraspinatus muscle, and the superior transverse ligament of scapula, and the suprascapular artery is also seen in the image. And next to that, this is the suprascapular nerve, which was clearly identified because of its hyperechogenicity. My sampling technique, the sample size was 40 patients, 20 patients in each group, and the study went on for 6 months. The sample size was calculated by GPaper software, and the sampling technique was simple random sampling technique. And every patient was every patient was put in the alternative group, and data was analyzed using independent t-test with SPSS version 23 software. The inclusion criteria for the study was patients with pain and stiffness in one or both shoulders for at least 6 months, restricted and passive range of motion at the glenohumeral joint, pain at night causing sleep disturbances and inability to lie on the affected side, and with no history of recent trauma or no history of previous injections involved in the shoulder, and no history of allergy to the local anesthetic and any other medical conditions such as coagulation disorders. Exclusion criteria was conditions in which steroids were contraindicated. So here, seeing the graph of my results, so coming to the results, looking at the graph of my results, the mean age of the both study group and the sex were of insignificant value. So both individuals were comparable in all the in the age and sex parameters. And coming to the pathology of the shoulder joints, the p-value is 0.698. So here also the comparison is statistically yes, ma'am, statistically not valid. So there is not much difference between the two groups. And follow-up of these two groups. First, coming to this shoulder infiltration group, there was both I compared with DASH score, VAS score, SPADI score, and constant Murley score, and all scores there was no significant statistical difference. Sorry, there was significant statistical difference as the p-value was less than 0.05. And this signifies that the shoulder infiltration technique is better, have a significant value compared to other.
Avinash, time up.
And, yes, ma'am. And finally, coming to the discussion, there were two studies which was done, and one study found that there was better results in the steroid infiltration. One study found it was comparable, and one study found that it was also comparable. And coming to the conclusion, there was no significant differences noted in the pain, shoulder range of motion, and functional score. Initially, the functional outcome and suprascapular nerve block was slightly better compared to the intra-articular infiltration, and there was no major complications associated with the both groups, but minor complications were lesser in suprascapular nerve block. And the further study is required for follow-up and to arrive at greater conclusions.
Thank you, Dr. Avinash. Over to judges.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Avinash, can you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm able to hear you, sir.
You should stick on to your timings.
Sorry, sir.
Always practice it and stick on to your timings. My question is, what
Yes,
are the other scales you used for the score apart from the VAS scale? What are the other scores, the other pain scores you used here?
Sir, I had used this disability of arm and shoulder, arm, shoulder, and hand scores, a DASH score, which is actually used in orthopedics to score and grade the movement and disability of the joint, sir. The next score which I used was Constant-Muley score, sir. This is also one of the questionnaire which sees range of motion and range of motion and pain, both range of motion, arm position, pain, and external rotation of the shoulder joint, sir. And also I had taken consideration into the shoulder and pain disability index, that is SPAD score, sir. So all scores were correlated with each other, sir.
What approach did you did? Which approach?
Sir,
which approach?
Sir, the sitting position, sir, a lateral in plane approach I went for the suprascapular nerve block, sir. The probe was kept parallel to the suprascapular spine, sir, and from the lateral side of the probe in the longitudinal section, in the longitudinal, I went in plane and identified the structures, and the nerve was hydrodissected with the drug, sir. Yes.
I'll go to Johnson, sir.
With the interest of time.
Okay, wait. Avinash,
judges, with the interest of time, can we?
Wait, madam.
Yes,
Judges.
You have put up your own image there in the slide.
Yes, sir.
Is it your patient
Yes,
or taken from the internet?
No, sir, it is my patient, sir.
It's already published in the internet. It is already published. The article is, I think, already published.
Sir, it was done. It was done under it was done under orthopedics department and anesthesia, sir.
So somebody else would have
anesthesia,
published it. So it's already published article. Okay, you can move to the next one.
Thank you, Dr. Avinash.
There's a request, please don't publish the paper who have been published already. Sir is telling it's already published there.
So the image is already in there. The paper is already there.
Yeah, it is unorthodox to do all those things. Please.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. This was originally done under.
Some other people have published it.
Sir, there was an orthopedics PG also involved with me in this study.
Published. Please publish that article.
I'm sorry, sir. Under anesthesia, we have never published it, sir. It was original study done by my sir and me, sir. In the department, in our department.
Consult your co-authors also before presenting.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Avinash, and thank you, judges.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Next, we have with us Dr. Ratnakala.
Good evening, ma'am.
Dr. Ratnakala. Yes, yeah. Share your screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Judges, please note we are a little running short of time. We have to move little fast. Okay, please note, sir, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Go to the presentation mode.
Yes, ma'am.
And your time starts now.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Ratnakala, final year postgraduate from Maharaja Institute of Medical Sciences, Vijayanagaram. Today, I am going to present a paper on comparison of dexmedetomidine versus clonidine as an adjuvant to 0.5% ropivacaine in supraclavicular brachial plexus block. Introduction. Supraclavicular brachial plexus block is a common tissue anesthetic technique. It is used to provide anesthesia and analgesia for upper extremity surgery at our institution. Alpha-2 adrenoreceptor agonists have been the focus of interest for their sedation, analgesic properties, and perioperative sympatholytic and cardiovascular anesthetic requirements. Clonidine, an imidazoline alpha-2 adrenoreceptor agonist, has been extensively studied as an adjuvant to local anesthetic in peripheral nerve blocks. Dexmedetomidine is also an alpha-2 adrenoreceptor agonist, and it is 8 times more potent than clonidine. The anesthetic and analgesic requirement get reduced to a large extent by the use of these two adjuvants because of their analgesic properties and augmentation of local anesthetic effects. The aims and objectives. And aims are, my aim is to compare clonidine and dexmedetomidine as an adjuvant to ropivacaine, 0.5% ropivacaine in supraclavicular brachial plexus block with respect to onset and duration of sensory and motor blocks and duration of analgesia. And my objectives are to compare efficacy of analgesic effects of clonidine and dexmedetomidine as an adjuvant to ropivacaine in supraclavicular brachial plexus block for post-operative analgesia as assessed by the following outcomes like degree of analgesia is assessed by pain score 0 to 10 post-operatively up to 24 hours, time of onset and duration of sensory and motor block in minutes, duration of analgesia in minutes, and quality of block. And my materials and methods are the study areas Department of Anesthesia, Maharaja Institute of Medical Sciences, Nellimala, Vijayanagaram. And sample sizes we have taken 90 ASA 1 or 2 patients between the ages of 18 to 60 years who were scheduled for elective orthopedic surgeries in the upper limb under supraclavicular brachial plexus block, and we were included in this study. And my study period is 15 months, and my study design is a prospective randomized study, and patients were allocated into 3 groups of 30 each. And my materials are Group A received 20 ml of 0.5% ropivacaine diluted to 30 ml with normal saline. Group B received 20 ml of 0.5% ropivacaine and clonidine 1 microgram per kg taken diluted to 30 ml with normal saline as well. And Group C received 20 ml of 0.5% ropivacaine and dexmedetomidine 1 microgram per kg and is diluted to 30 ml with normal saline. And inclusion criteria, adult patients aged between 18 to 60 years, ASA grade 1 and 2 physical status, scheduled for elective surgery under supraclavicular brachial plexus block. The procedures which are of moderate duration and included both bone plating, fixation of lower third of humerus, olecranon fixation and forearm surgeries. And exclusion criteria like patients receiving chronic analgesic therapy, those with severe cardiopulmonary diseases, thyroid disorders, diabetes mellitus, central or peripheral neuropathies, bleeding disorders, history of allergy to local anesthetics or other contraindications to regional anesthesia, and uncooperative patients. We have studied the onset, duration of sensory and motor block, duration of analgesia and quality of block. Continuous data are presented as mean plus or minus standard deviation, and statistical test used for analysis was ANOVA test. And my results are like this. The mean time for the onset of sensory block in plain ropivacaine group is 6.7 plus or minus 1 minute, whereas in ropivacaine with clonidine group it is 4.47 plus or minus 0.93 minutes, and ropivacaine with dexmedetomidine group it is 3.4 plus or minus 1 minute. So the onset of sensory block is much earlier, significantly earlier in group B and C when compared to group A, whereas in group B and C, the group C had an earlier onset of sensory block compared to group B. The mean time for the mean onset of motor block in plain ropivacaine group it is 12.43 plus or minus 1 minute. In ropivacaine with clonidine group it is 6.6 plus or minus 0.9 minutes. In ropivacaine with dexmedetomidine group it is 6.6 plus or minus 1 minute. In this also, there is significantly earlier onset of motor block in group C, that is dexmedetomidine compared to group B and group A. In the duration of sensory block, the mean duration of sensory block in plain ropivacaine group, it is 426 minutes plus or minus 30 minutes. Ropivacaine with clonidine group, it is 703 plus or minus 16 minutes. Ropivacaine with dexmedetomidine group, it is 745 plus or minus 19 minutes. Group C, that is ropivacaine with dexmedetomidine group, has longer duration of sensory block when compared to group B and A, and duration of motor block in group A it is 396 plus or minus 23 minutes, group B it is 660 plus or minus 18 minutes, group C it is 707 plus or minus 25 minutes. Group C has a longer duration of motor block when compared to group A and B. Then duration of analgesia is longer, that is 778 plus 13 plus or minus 21 minutes in group C when compared to group B and A. And the quality of block, that is we have the patients with group C, that is ropivacaine with dexmedetomidine group, we have achieved grade 4 quality of block when compared to other two groups. So conclusion, dexmedetomidine 9 microgram per kg when added to 30 ml mixture of ropivacaine 0.4% plus normal saline as for suprachiasmatic brachial plexus block speeds the onset of sensory and motor blocks, prolongs the duration of
Time
sensory and
up.
motor block.
Dr. Ratnakala, time up.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Over to the judges.
What is the p-value? What is the p-value you calculated?
P-value less than 0.001, sir.
So duration of block, you judge on a duration of block, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Sir,
So what is the equipotent dose of clonidine and dexmedetomidine? Equipotent dose. You have used 1 microgram in each drug.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But what is the equipotent dose of clonidine with Xanax? You know that only you can design your study. It is 50 mg is equal to of clonidine is equal to 5 mg of Dex. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, judges. Next, we have with us Dr. Pavitra. Judges, kindly note Dr. Pavitra. Serial number 7. Pavitra, can you share your screen? Go to the presentation mode.
Good evening all, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And your time starts now.
My paper presentation is on evaluation of analgesic efficacy of ultrasound guided adductor canal block with 20 ml of 0.5% ropivacaine in patients undergoing knee surgeries. The study was registered on Clinical Trial Registry India. Generally, orthopedic knee surgeries are associated with intense pain, and knee arthroscopic surgeries are associated with mild to moderate type of pain. Acute post-operative pain leads to complications like prolonged hospital stay, decreased patient satisfaction, and increased morbidity. Post-op analgesia can be provided by several methods like patient-controlled analgesia with opioids, epidural analgesia, nerve blocks, local infiltration analgesia, and NSAIDs. Adductor canal block is a sensory block. It provides pain relief after knee surgery without any motor blockade. It blocks the femoral nerve after most of the motor branches of quadricep muscles have left, and thereby it helps in early mobilization. The aim of my study was to evaluate the analgesic efficacy of adductor canal block to reduce pain during rest and flexion of knee in patients who underwent arthroscopic knee surgeries. The primary objective was to evaluate the total morphine consumption produced by adductor canal block after arthroscopic knee surgeries. The secondary objectives were to evaluate the duration of post-operative analgesia, average VAS scores at rest and at flexion, post-operative hemodynamics, side effects of block, and adverse effects related to morphine. My sample size was 70. It was based on a pilot study. There were two groups, a adductor canal group and control group, each group consisting of 35 patients. And inclusion criteria: patients aged from 18 to 60 years, ASA grade 1 and 2, and body mass index ranging from 18 to 30. Exclusion criteria is patient's refusal, drug allergy to local anesthetics, pregnancy, bilateral knee surgeries, and revision surgeries. Surgeries were done under spinal anesthesia with 15 mg of hyperbaric bupivacaine to achieve a sensory level of blockade up to T10. Group A patients received adductor canal block, and block was not performed in Group C patient. Post-operatively, patient-controlled analgesia pump was administered with the basal infusion of 0.1 mg per hour morphine, bolus 1 mg, and lockout interval of 10 minutes in both the groups. Statistical analysis: for continuous variables, student t-test was used, and for categorical variables, chi-square test was used. A p-value of less than 0.05 was considered to be statistically significant, and p-value of less than 0.001 was considered to be highly statistically significant. This is a flow diagram of a patient distribution. The patient assessed for eligibility was 74, and one patient declined to participate, and one patient had fungal infection at the intervention site. So totally 72 patients were randomized, and they were allocated to two groups, A and C. In group A, one patient, it was a failed spinal. In group B, all the 36 patients were allocated. During follow-up, in group C, one patient was lost to follow-up due to PCA pump malfunction. So we analyzed total of 70, 35, 35 in each group. Coming to demographics, the gender, age, height, weight, ASA 1, 2, and duration of surgery were comparable in both the groups, and the p-value was not statistically significant. Coming to morphine consumption, the patient in group A, adductor canal block group, had lesser morphine consumption than that of group C, with a p-value of less than 0.001, highly statistically significant, and the duration of analgesia was considerably increased in group A than group C, control group, and the p-value was highly statistically significant. This is the chart to show VAS at risk between two groups. The mean VAS at risk during initial 2 hours was not statistically significant between adductor canal group and control group. But from the 3rd hour postoperatively till 24 hours, the patients in adductor canal block group had significantly decreased VAS scores than that of control group. Similarly, VAS at flexion was for initial 2 hours, there was no statistically significant difference, but from the 3rd hour of the postoperative period, there was a statistically significant difference. The similar study, Jiang et al. Did a meta-analysis, and he also revealed the same results that adductor canal block resulted in decreased opioid consumption, and adductor canal block resulted in decreased pain scores at rest and movement. I would like to conclude that ultrasound-guided adductor canal block resulted in significantly decreased opioid consumption after knee surgery. Also, the adductor canal block prolonged the duration of analgesia, and VAS pain force and hemodynamic stability was better in adductor canal group. There was no complications related to block in our study. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pavitra. Over to judges.
Any other nerve you can block there? What are the nerves you block there?
Saphenous nerve, nerve to vastus medialis, then infrapatellar nerve, and a part of operator nerve.
Any additives you can do other than this?
We can add Dexmed.
You can go with the morphine.
If you are not planning for post-operative in the PCA pump morphine, we can add Dexmed.
Okay.
So you have included age group is 18 to 60 years.
Yes.
Your inclusion. So have you given the same baseline infusion, same dose of morphine for 18 years and 60
yes,
years?
sir. Yes, sir. For everyone, the same one.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Pavitra and judges. Next, we have with us Dr. Chirag Damru, serial number 8. Dr. Chirag, kindly share your screen. Go to the presentation mode.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible. Slide
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Slideshow. And your time starts now.
My topic of study is comparison of intraperitoneal instillation of bupivacaine versus bupivacaine with magnesium sulfate for postoperative analgesia after laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Introduction. Laparoscopic cholecystectomy is nowadays a routinely performed procedure that has replaced the conventional open cholecystectomy because of its advantages like small incision, less blood loss, shorter hospital stay, and reduced pain, which cut down to less cost. Parietal pain originates from surgical skin incision. Pain, if not adequately treated, will lead to inadequate respiratory efforts, leading to reduction in vital capacity and loss of sigh mechanism, contributing to pulmonary morbidity. Therefore, to avoid the post-laparoscopic pain, multimodal analgesic techniques have been in practice. Among the various different approaches, intraperitoneal instillation of local anesthetic agents and opioid is gaining popularity for better pain relief. Opioids are having drawback in the form of nausea, vomiting, respiratory depression, and urinary retention. Other agents that can be used intraperitoneally are alpha-2 adrenergic receptor agonists like dexmedetomidine and NMDA receptor antagonists like magnesium sulfate. It is known that multiple glutamate receptors are present on peripheral nerve terminals, which are contributing to peripheral nociceptive sensation. So this is an evidence for the use of peripheral N-methyl D-aspartate receptor antagonist like magnesium sulfate to relieve the pain. Magnesium sulfate is an NMDA receptor and a calcium channel blocker. It has been used in the laparoscopic cholecystectomy as an IV bolus, continuous IV infusion, epidural infusion, and subarachnoid space for the postoperative analgesia. In addition, intraperitoneal local anesthetic in combination with magnesium sulfate has shown to improve postoperative pain after laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Therefore, we also decided to study the analgesic efficacy of intraperitoneal instillation of magnesium sulfate with bupivacaine for postoperative analgesia after laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Our primary objectives are to compare the analgesic efficacy by measuring the following parameters. First is duration of postoperative pain relief, and second is number of rescue analgesic required in the first 24 hours. Our secondary objectives are to monitor the pulse rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation, and EtCO2. And other objectives are to monitor the side effects, if any, like nausea, vomiting, hypotension, bradycardia, respiratory depression, sedation, and headache. Our type of study is prospective randomized single-blind study. And inclusion criteria for our study is patients who are posted for the elective laparoscopic cholecystectomy, patient having ASA grading 1, 2, and 3, patient age between 18 and 65 years or either sex. Our exclusion criteria are patient who is having allergy to studied drugs like magnesium sulfate or bupivacaine, patient who is having liver and renal failure, patient with the heart block, a patient who is chronic alcoholic and drug abuse, or patient receiving any sort of pain medication on chronic basis. Sample size estimation was done using the MAID-Kelsey software, which gave a minimum sample size of 65 in each group. Hence, a total of 130 patients were studied. Pre-anesthesia evaluation, history, examination, and investigations are done. Written and informed consents are taken. As a pre-medication, we will use injection glycopyrrolate 5 microgram per kg IV and injection fentanyl 2 microgram per kg IV, injection endocetrone 4 mg IV, and Rentec 50 milligram IV. Conventional general anesthesia is given. After removal of the gallbladder, peritoneal wash and suctioning are done, and before reversal, intraperitoneal instillation of drug as per the following group are given. In group B, we will give patient will receive the intraperitoneal instillation of bupivacaine, which is 30 ml of 0.25%, and in group M, patient will receive instillation of bupivacaine plus magnesium sulfate. Here, the dose of magnesium sulfate will be 50 milligram per kg. In monitoring, we will see for the assessment of postoperative pain using VAS score, requirement of the first rescue analgesia, total number of rescue analgesia required in 24 hours, vital parameters, and postoperative complication. All these parameters were measured at 30 minutes interval, postoperatively up to 2 hours, and then 2 hourly interval up to 12 hours, and then 6 hourly interval up to 24 hours. This is the visual analog scale. Rescue analgesia, as a rescue analgesia, we will give paracetamol 1 gram by the IV infusion over 50 minutes when the VAS score is 4 or greater than 4. We will use the MAID-Kelsey software for the calculation, and the significance is P value is greater than 0.05, then it is not significant. If P value is less than 0.05, then it is significant, and P value is less than 0.001, then it will be highly significant. And for the statistical, as a statistical test, we will use student's t-test and
1 minute left.
Chi-square test. Demographic, in a demographic data, we will include age, weight, and ASA 1, 2, 3, and both sex. Demographic data were comparable in both the groups. Graph shows that the VAS score was higher in the group B as compared to group M at second, fourth, and sixth postoperative hour, and this difference was statistically significant. At the 4th hour, the change in the mean was highly significant. At 12th hour, it was comparable between the two groups. Then it again higher at the 18th and 24th hour in group B as compared to group M. Time for the first rescue analgesia, it was 120 plus or minus 16 minutes in group B as compared to 240 plus or minus 63 minutes in group M, which was statistically highly significant. We noted that the number of analgesic doses required in 24 hours it was 3.71 plus or minus 0.98 in group B, whereas it was 2.72 plus or minus 0.80 in group M, which was statistically highly significant. And post-operative complication, we can see
Time up, Dr. Chirag.
vomiting, yes, ma'am, shoulder pain and no complication. From our study, we can conclude that the intraperitoneal instillation of magnesium sulfate with the bupivacaine after completion of laparoscopic cholecystectomy makes the patient relatively pain-free in the first 24 hours after surgery, with longer duration of pain-free period and less consumption of rescue analgesic in post-operative TDF as compared to intraperitoneal instillation of bupivacaine alone.
Chirag, you said it's a single-blinded study. What do you mean by single-blinded study?
Yes, sir.
You said it is a single-blinded study.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you mean by single-blinded study?
It's a single-blinded study. In this, only the doctor who is giving the drug or who is performing the study on the patient will only know which drug he is giving or what type of study he is doing. The patient is not knowing which drug he is receiving or any other person. Only the experimenter who is giving the drug will only know the study.
So the doctor who is doing the observation in the post-operative period knows the drugs. Which patient belong to which group?
Yes, yes, sir.
Then it is biased. Study is biased.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We are accepting the study is biased.
No, sir. Drug is given by me only, and
should be at least in double-blind study.
Yes, sir. Yes, 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 sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, Ravi, sir.
Why do you think the pain is due to, visceral pain is due to?
Sir, visceral pain is due to okay, abdominal contents. When the surgeon will play with the abdominal content, or it can be due to the intraperitoneal
pain mainly due to your inflammation.
Yes, sir.
Gastric irritation to diaphragm and penic
yes,
nerve.
yes. Yes.
And there's inflammation of the diaphragm also during cholecystitis.
Yes.
The inflammation of the cystitis can produce inflammation of the diaphragm also.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chirag and judges. Next, we have with us Dr. Gauri Mahesh Dugga. Dr. Gauri.
Yes, ma'am.
Share your screen.
Yeah.
Slideshow.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and your time starts.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, ma'am.
And your time starts now.
Good evening, one and all. Myself, Dr. Gauri Mahesh, third year postgraduate, Ashram Medical College, Eluru, West Godavari district. My study topic is to evaluate the efficacy of fentanyl as an adjuvant to bupivacaine in intraoperative analgesia in ultrasound-guided supraclavicular brachial plexus block. Coming to introduction, pain is an unpleasant sensation which the individual himself can appraise such incapable of satisfactory definition. Brachial plexus block is a valuable adjunct to general anesthesia in patients undergoing upper limb surgeries, whereas local anesthetic drugs are proved to be safe and beneficial for upper and lower limb surgeries that cause neural blockade by inhibiting the transmission of impulses. Whereas brachial plexus block studies have shown that the addition of opioids like fentanyl to the local anesthetic drugs prolong the duration and efficacy of analgesic effects. Aim and objective. My study aimed to compare the onset and duration of analgesia and motor block to evaluate the hemodynamic effects of fentanyl as adjuvant to bupivacaine. Coming to method and methodology, this is a prospective study done in Department of Anesthesiology in Alluri Sitaram Raju Academy of Medical Sciences, Eluru, on 64 patients who underwent upper limb surgeries for a period of 1 year. This study was approved by Institutional Ethics Committee, and all the patients who met with inclusion and exclusion criteria were only enrolled. All patients were given written informed consent form before their enrollment. Patients are equally divided into two groups of 32 each. Group 1 received 30 ml of 0.5% bupivacaine and group 2 received 30 ml of 0.5% bupivacaine with 2 micrograms per ml fentanyl. Inclusion criteria. All patients aged between 18 to 60 years of either gender, ASA grade 1 and 2, patients undergoing elective upper limb surgeries under supraclavicular brachial plexus block are only included. Exclusion criteria were patient who refused to give written consent form, ASA grade 3 and above, any history of allergic reactions to anesthesia, patients with peripheral neuropathy and coagulopathy are excluded. These are results. These are my results. This table shows the demographic factors of two groups. The mean age in years in bupivacaine alone group is 38.06 years. Mean age in bupivacaine plus fentanyl group is 42.25 years. P-value is 0.234, which is statistically not significant. This table showing the distribution of clinical variables, heart rate, systolic blood pressure, respiratory rate, and SpO2 between the groups after block. The mean heart rate in plain bupivacaine group is 79.12 beats per minute. Mean heart rate in bupivacaine plus fentanyl group is 78.91 BPM, which is statistically not significant. Mean SBP in bupivacaine group is 119.06 mm of Hg. Mean SBP in bupivacaine plus fentanyl group is 115.12 mm of Hg. This table shows the comparison of onset of analgesia, motor and sensory block, and duration of surgery and number of rescue medications given in both the groups. Mean onset of analgesia in plain bupivacaine group is 17.25 minutes. Mean onset of analgesia in bupivacaine plus fentanyl group is 18.12 minutes. P-value 0.0066, which is statistically not significant. Mean onset of motor block in plain bupivacaine is 14.72 minutes. Mean onset of motor block in bupivacaine plus fentanyl group is 17.88 minutes, which is statistically significant. Mean duration of motor block in plain bupivacaine is 9.66 hours. Mean duration of motor block in bupivacaine plus fentanyl group is 11.94 hours, which is statistically significant. Mean duration of bupivacaine group is 11.69 hours. Mean duration of sensory block in bupivacaine plus fentanyl group is 14 hours, which is statistically significant. Number of rescue doses in bupivacaine group is 2 times. Number of rescue doses in bupivacaine plus fentanyl group is 1.84 times. Coming to discussion in our study, onset and duration of sensory and motor analgesia effects were studied following administration of 0.5% bupivacaine and 0.5% bupivacaine with 2 micrograms per ml fentanyl in adults undergoing upper limb surgeries under supraclavicular block. We found that adding fentanyl to bupivacaine dose showed better results for sensory and motor block offset times. The difference between two groups showed statistical significance. Previous studies by Shiva PV et al. Also reported that addition of fentanyl to bupivacaine drug in brachial plexus block showed significantly prolonged duration of analgesic effect and delay in the sensory and motor block when compared to local anesthetic bupivacaine dose alone. In a randomized
1 minute
study,
left.
Karkaya D et al. In 2001, the additional
1 minute
efficacy
left.
of added fentanyl to bupivacaine had increased the duration of anesthesia and analgesia in axillary brachial plexus block. Though addition of fentanyl enhances the post of analgesia, the duration of this effect is too brief to be clinically useful, which was stated by Kardas K et al. We concluded from our findings that addition of fentanyl to local analgesic adjuvant for supraclavicular brachial plexus block will provide delayed onset of analgesia, but longer duration of post-op analgesia in upper limb surgeries. Conclusion: to concluded the addition of 2 micrograms per ml fentanyl to 0.5% bupivacaine for supraclavicular brachial plexus block under ultrasound guidance resulted in improved intraoperative anesthesia and post-op analgesia with minimal differences in hemodynamics but delayed onset of sensory and motor block. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gauri.
Thank you.
Over to judges.
So what's your advantage of adding fentanyl? It is the onset or duration?
Main
onset or
duration.
duration?
Duration.
Fentanyl, is it a short acting or long acting? Okay.
Long acting only, sir. Long acting. When compared to remifentanil.
Post-operative analgesia requirement, both are same.
Yes, sir.
So how do you say it is a superior post-operative analgesia?
Less number of rescue analgesia, less number of
statistically it is not significant.
Yes, sir. It is statistically not significant, but the duration of analgesia is more due to adjuvant addition of fentanyls to bupropion, sir.
How much hours? 2 hours.
Sir, 2 micrograms per ml.
What's the advantage? 2 hours post-op extra.
Yes, sir, and less hemodynamic disturbances, sir. Is hemodynamically stable, sir. More or less stable, sir.
Okay, right, sir.
Where do you put your probe? Transducer probe?
Is parallel to clavicle, supraclavicular area, sir. Is parallel to clavicle and implant technique.
What is it called? Blindly you're putting a probe there, you should put in a sagittal plane.
Yes, sir. In
supraclavicular fossa.
Supraclavicular fossa, sir. In supraclavicular fossa.
Fossa, in the sagittal plane you should put.
Sagittal plane under implant technique. Sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gauri and judges.
Thank you, ma'am.
Judges, please note the last session, last presentation by Dr. Mohammed Michel. Dr. Mohammed, kindly share your screen.
Is it visible, ma'am?
Not yet. Open your PPT.
Ma'am, is my screen is visible?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Ma'am, it is showing host disabled participant screen sharing.
You are connected in 2 devices. Which device?
Okay, sir.
Yes. Now check it out. Yes, now share the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Now share the screen.
Now is it visible? Hello?
Yes, yes. Open your PPT.
Good evening, all. I'm Dr. Michal. I'm here to present comparison.
Your time starts now.
Okay, ma'am. Good evening, all. I'm Dr. Michal. I'm here to present comparison of phenylephrine and norepinephrine bolus doses for the treatment of postspinal hypertension during cesarean sections, a randomized controlled trial. We'll start with background and introduction. Currently, most of cesarean sections are performed under spinal anesthesia, but in spite of adequate fluid loading, maternal hypotension is a common complication after spinal anesthesia. Hypertension can lead to dizziness, nausea, vomiting in mother, and decreased uterine blood flow, fetal hypoxia, and acidosis. Prompt treatment of hypotension with IV fluids or vasopressor is necessary to avoid these detrimental maternal and neonatal effects. Nowadays, phenylephrine is a alpha agonist is considered as first-line vasopressor in treatment and prevention of postspinal hypertension in cesarean section because this is associated with less chances of fetal acidosis, reactive hypertension, arrhythmia, and less episode of intraoperative nausea and vomiting than ephedrine. But it is also associated with reflex decrease, heart rate, and cardiac output in repeated doses. Incidence of bradycardia and hypertension by phenylephrine is high in prophylactic administration and treatment after onset of spinal hypertension, and phenylephrine is associated with high incidence and severity of maternal pre-delivery hypertension. Norepinephrine is an alternative potent vasopressor for postspinal hypertension in cesarean section with both alpha and beta agonist action and could be more advantageous than phenylephrine as it causes less reduction in heart rate and cardiac output, so result in more stable intraoperative hemodynamics. So norepinephrine is supposed to be effective to reduce hypotension incidence without significant adverse effects on maternal and neonatal outcomes. In our study, we aim to assess compare the efficacy and safety of bolus doses of phenylephrine with norepinephrine to treat postspinal hypertension in cesarean sections, and comparative analysis of maternal hemodynamics, vasopressor requirement, maternal and neonatal side effects. Methodology. This was a prospective double-blinded randomized controlled trial was conducted in a tertiary care teaching institute after approval from the local ethics committee over 2 to 3 months. 60 participants of ASA 1 and 2 and aged of 20 to 40 years scheduled for cesarean section were conducted under spinal anesthesia. ASA grade 3 or 4 or height less than 140 centimeter or more than 180 centimeter, patient with fetal distress, diabetes mellitus, hypertensive disorder of pregnancy, non-cardiovascular or cerebrovascular disease, twin pregnancy, dermatol block of more than T4 level, and postpartum hemorrhage was excluded from the study. After getting consent from patient, baseline vitals were noted and patient were preloaded with 20 ml per kg of ringer lactate solution. Under strict antiseptic precaution, 2 ml of 0.5% BPUAC in heavy was injected intrathecally at L3, L4 intervertebral space in seating position with help of 25 gauge Quincke's spinal needle. Maintenance fluid was given as ringer lactate 20 ml per minute throughout the procedure. Highest level of sensory block was assessed by pinprick method after subarachnoid block. Heart rate, blood pressure, and saturation was recorded after subarachnoid block at every 2 minutes till next 20 minutes after spinal anesthesia, and at every 3 minutes after that till completion of surgery. Injection oxytocin was given IV slow immediately after delivery of the baby. Maternal hypotension is decreased in systolic blood pressure of more than 20% of baseline value was treated with the bolus dose of vasopressor. Patient was divided into two groups. Either received 30% received 10 microgram of norepinephrine as IV bolus dose, and 30 more patient from group P received 100 microgram of phenylephrine IV bolus dose. Whenever hypotension occurred, number of bolus dose was given, total vasopressin consumption, total IV fluid given throughout the surgery, bradycardia or tachycardia, total oxytocin given, Apgar score at 1 minute and 5 minutes, and side effect like intraoperative nausea, vomiting, skin discoloration, and shivering was noted. Bradycardia, pulse rate less than 50 per minute or less was treated with injection atropine of 0.6 mg IV bolus doses. Blood pressure, heart rate, highest level of dermatomal block, and side effect, if any, like hypertension, bradycardia, hyperglycemia, nausea, vomiting, shivering, etc., was noted and analyzed. Results were compounded and appropriate statically analyzed. The results were, first of all, age, BMI, period of gestation was comparable, and later the T3 dermatome block was similar in single
1 minute left.
one cases. T4 maximum cases was 25 in group M with T4 and 27 in group P. A T4 dermatome block, and T5 was achieved in 4 patients in group N and group P2 patient. The time of established spinal block and total duration of surgery was also comparable. The number of bolus doses of vasopressor was significantly high with group P, then group N, and result was statistically significant also. Bradycardia was more commonly seen in group P. Tachycardia was more similarly seen with group N. Nausea and vomiting was similarly in both groups. Shivering was more commonly seen with group P, and Apgar score was almost equal in both the groups at 1 minute and in 5 minutes. Discussion. In our study, patient demographic data like age, BMI, gestational age, dermatome block, and duration of surgery was comparable. The number of bolus vasopressor for treatment
Time
of
up,
postspinal
Dr. Mohammed.
hypertension.
Time up.
And should I continue?
Finish
Over
it
to-
up. Finish it up.
Okay, finish it up.
The number of bolus vasopressor for treatment of postspinal hypertension in cesarean section was significantly lower in group N than group P. These results were consistent by a study by Puthenwintil and et al. Bradycardia was seen more commonly with group P, while it was seen less in group N. These results was comparable with the recent studies by Moft et al. The tachycardia was seen more commonly in group N, while no tachycardia or less was seen with phenylephrine group. In this study, Apgar score was measured as an indicator of neonatal well-being and measured at 1 minute and 5 minutes. No difference was observed in Apgar score between both groups of at 1 minute and 5 minutes. Maternal side effect like nausea, vomiting was observed in equal number of cases in both groups. Nowadays, phenylephrine is considered as a first-line vasopressor in treatment and prevention of postspinal hypertension in cesarean section. In a recent study by Mota M. et al., phenylephrine 100 microgram was found approximately equally potent to norepinephrine 9 microgram. Conclusion: intermittent bolus doses of norepinephrine are effective and safe in management of postspinal hypertension during cesarean section, so it can be considered as an alternative to phenylephrine bolus doses. Thank you.
Mohammed, you have used 10 mics of noradrenaline and 100 mics of phenylephrine. Why you have used different doses?
Sorry?
You have used 10 mics of noradrenaline and 100 mics of phenylephrine.
Yes, sir.
For treating the hypotension.
Yes, sir.
Two groups, between the two groups. So why you have selected 10 mics of noradrenaline and 100 mics of phenylephrine?
One previous study.
Is there any reason behind that?
Yeah, sir. There was one study
done by. Is there? What is the scientific reason behind that? Which one is potent? Noradrenaline or phenylephrine? Which one is potent? See, noradrenaline is 11 times potent than phenylephrine. That's why you have selected 10 mics compared to 100 mics.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Ravi, sir.
What is the optimal level of pressure you would take, calling as an hypotension?
Sir, fallen BP of more than 20% from baseline.
So you said in hypotension.
Yes, sir.
So did you notice any complications with this noradrenaline?
With noradrenaline, with 10 microgram IV bolus doses, I was faced with tachycardia only, not more than that.
Okay, ASA
is 1 and 2 only.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, and thank you, judges. As we have come to the end of the session, on behalf of ISA WebCon Kerala 2020, I thank both the judges, Edward sir and Ramgiri sir. Thank you for your valuable time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ISA Kerala, office bearers, and Dr. Venkatagiri sir. Vinny, Matthew, thank you.
Thank you, ISA Kerala. And my special thanks to Venkatagiri. I should be thanking him. Thank you very much, madam. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ravi, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jana.
Thank you, participants, and thank you, judges, once again.